everybody, I'm Kristen, and I'm so glad that you are joining us today for another week with C3 Kids. Right now we're in a series called Wise, and today is week 3, and we're talking about a man named Solomon. And I am so glad to be teaching today because he happens to be one of my favorite people in the Bible. So I'm so glad that you're joining us today. Well, before we start into our story, I want to ask you guys a question. If you could have anything that you wanted, what would it be? That's such a hard question. If you could have anything in the whole universe, if God was willing to give you absolutely anything, all you had to do was ask, what would it be? Honestly, I have no idea. I don't know what I would want. But we are learning this week about a man named Solomon, and that's exactly what happened to him. God appeared to him in a dream and told him that he could have anything at all. All he had to do was ask, and God would grant his wish. And it's really interesting because he didn't wish for, a whole bunch of riches. He didn't wish for his enemies to all be taken over. He wished for wisdom, which is what we are talking about this month. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about the backstory of what we're going to learn about today. So if you remember, last week we talked about a man named David, and he became king of Israel. And eventually, David died and wasn't the king anymore. And his son was Solomon, who we're learning about today, and he was the next king. And after Solomon became king, God appeared to him in a dream. And the Bible tells us that God said, "What do you want? Ask and I will give it to you." Isn't that amazing? He could have anything in the world. But Solomon's answer was, "Lord my God, you have made me king, but I am like a little child who doesn't know his way. And here I am in the midst of your own chosen people, a nation so great and numerous they can't be counted. Give me an understanding heart so that I can govern your people and know the difference between right and wrong. For who can govern this great people of yours by himself?" So when Solomon was given the choice of anything, he asked for wisdom. And that's exactly what our series this month is about. It's about asking God for wisdom. And we're learning that when we ask, God gives it to us. Now, this story goes on a little further and tells us that God told Solomon, because he didn't ask for riches and he didn't ask for the death of his enemies, that God gave him those things also. Just because Solomon made the wise choice in what he asked for, God gave him even the things he didn't ask for. And shortly after that experience, something happened to Solomon, and that's what our story is about today. So I want you to go ahead and watch our video, and I'll meet you back here in a few minutes.
Hey kids, how's it going? We have something really important to talk about today. Are you ready? We're talking about words. Did you know that the words we say are important to God? So are the things we choose not to say. Has your mom or dad ever asked you to do something, like clean up your toys, and you said no instead of yes? Or has anyone ever said something that made you feel bad? See, our words are important. King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, knew this was true too. As king, he had to make a lot of hard decisions. One day, 2 women came to him very angry. They were fighting over a baby. They both said the baby was theirs, but that was impossible. Solomon knew one woman wasn't telling the truth, but he wasn't sure how to make the wise choice. Solomon thought and thought and thought. He prayed and prayed and prayed. And finally, God gave him the wisdom he needed to make the right decision. Solomon spoke to the women and solved the problem. The baby went home with his mom, and the whole kingdom was amazed at Solomon's wisdom. Just like Solomon asked God to help him say the right words, we can ask God for the right words too.
So in our video, we learned that Solomon made a very wise decision, and he couldn't have done that by himself. It was only with God's help that he was able to make the decision to test these women like they've told us about. And only the true mother of this baby would have been willing to sacrifice the opportunity to raise her child just so that her child could continue to live. And as they told us in our story, Solomon never really wanted to hurt the baby. He knew exactly what would happen. And that is so incredible. I don't think that I could have come up with that. And honestly, it's nice to know that sometimes in hard situations, I don't have to come up with the wise thing. I can ask God for the right words, and that's our big idea this week. I can ask God to give me the right words to say in a hard situation. And I want to show you guys something that I thought it was really cool. And this is a really good example to sort of drive home what we're talking about this week. It's not always easy to say the right words, and our words have a lot of impact. So what I'm gonna do is something that you can do at home, but before I do this and show you this, I need you guys to promise that you're not gonna do this unless you ask mom and dad's permission first, okay? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I've got this old disposable Christmas plate, yep, still have it from Christmas, and I've got a tube of toothpaste. And what I'm gonna do is I am going to squeeze out all of this toothpaste. Here it goes. Lots and lots. Still going. Oh my, there's a lot in there. So here we go. Oh, we're getting to the end. It gets kind of tough. Okay, so here we go. All of that toothpaste is out of there. See? It's not in there anymore. Instead, it's all right here. So now that it's out of this tube, I can't get it back in. There is nothing I can do to get all of this toothpaste back into this tube so I can use it to brush my teeth. But that's kind of like our words. Once they're out of our mouth, they're gone. We can't suck them back in. We can't take back the things that we say. So it's really, really important that we think about what we're gonna say. And we wanna say things that are kind and encouraging and helpful and wise. But sometimes that's really hard. Sometimes we don't know what words to say. And that's when it is so important that we ask God for help. He is always willing to help us, and He's always there for us. So I want you guys to remember that this week as you try to use your words wisely.
Carl? Are you okay? Why aren't you talking? This is basically a talk show. You have to talk. Oh no.
Welcome to Grow TV. Introducing your host, Carl. And your co-host, Cassie. Where we learn, where we grow, and we talk about Jesus. once again, welcome to Grow TV.
So apparently Carl isn't talking today, so we have to figure out something to do. How about Mad Lib? Mad Libs are like stories we get to make up as we go. So I'll read the words we need, and you can fill in the blanks with whatever words you want. Right, you can't talk, so maybe we can act out the words? All right. Okay, so I need a name of a person. Is that T? Okay, I'm guessing the Queen of England? All right. Okay, give me an adjective, a word to describe something. Smelly, stinky, farty. All right, that's pretty weird. I think we need another adjective and a noun, a person, place, or thing. Wait, I don't know what I'm guessing yet. Flappy pumpkin? All right. All right, so now we need another adjective and a noun. Grumpy tree? Okay, last one. Give me a verb, an action. Skip? All right, let's hear the story you made. Once upon a time, the Queen and I went to the park. On our way to the farty park, we saw a flappy pumpkin on a bike. We also saw a big grumpy balloon tied to the tree, so we skipped home.
Pumpkins can't ride bikes.
Well, look at you, you can talk.
I know, I just couldn't hold it in any longer.
Well, why weren't you talking in the first place?
Well, Cassie, I messed up this morning.
You did? How?
Well, my mamaw told me to clean up my room this morning and, well, I didn't want to.
Yeah, I don't feel like cleaning my room sometimes either. So what happened?
Well, I said a bad word.
Really? What did you say?
Well, when she told me to clean my room, I said, no. I know.
Did you get in trouble?
A little.
Wow, you didn't choose the right word, did you?
I sure didn't. And that's why I wasn't talking. I figured if I don't talk, I won't make the same mistake and say the wrong word again.
Yeah, I get that, but I think there's better ways to go about it.
Really? How?
Well, think back to the time when King Solomon had the right words for those two women that were fighting.
Oh yeah, those two women that lived in the same house and both had brand new babies.
Yep, but unfortunately, one of the babies didn't live. But instead of telling the other woman, the lady switched the babies and took her friend's kid, who was still alive.
Man, that's really sad. But also kind of messed up.
Yeah, so when the mother woke up, she was so sad because she saw her baby wasn't living anymore. But she looked closely and realized it wasn't her baby, it was her friend's. But the other mother wouldn't admit what she had done, so they went to the King Solomon.
Yeah, then King Solomon said to split the baby in two and give each half to one of the women, which is pretty weird and kind of terrible.
It is weird, but Solomon really didn't want to hurt the baby. It was a test. You see, the real mother of the living child begged King Solomon not to harm the baby. And she said it would be okay if the child went with the other woman, if it meant her child could live.
So that's how he knew he was telling the truth. Holy moly. Solomon is super wise.
He sure was. And the only reason he was so wise is because he asked God for wisdom, and that gave him the right words to say.
So you're telling me that we can ask God for the right words?
Yes, I'm also telling you that's our big idea.
No way! Today's big idea is we can ask God for the right words.
So say it out loud on the count of 3. 1,
2,
3.
we can ask God for the right words! All right! We did it! Sounds good! Thanks for helping me understand, Cassie. That was a great story. Don't you think so? Cassie? She's not talking. Oh, because the words thing. I was doing that earlier. Okay, she's not going to say anything, so see ya. Bye.
Okay, so it's time for us to talk about our memory verse. If you guys have been following along the last couple of weeks, you probably know it already, but here it is. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God and it will be given to you. That's kind of like what we were talking about just a little while ago. God will always give us wisdom when we ask. So, I want you to do something with me. If you know me pretty well by now, you know that I like to have ways to learn memory verses. And today we're gonna do some signs. So I want you to follow along with me. Use your pinky and point to your eyebrow. If any of you lacks, thumbs out, wisdom, point to your head, you should ask God. We're going to point up to God and He will give it to you. Reach out your hand like you're trying to give somebody something. So let's try to do that again together. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God and He will give it to you. Awesome. Good job, guys. Well, guys, that is the end of our lesson today. Thank you so much for joining me as we talked about Solomon and his really hard decision that he made with wisdom from God. I hope that you'll join us next week for our last video in our series, Wise.